Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new malicious compliance stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first one is titled, "Tell me to leave and don't come back after throwing up my guts?" Have fun working doubles. Many years ago I worked at a gas station on a college campus, mainly the evening shift Thursday through Sunday nights. The manager, I'll call her Wanda, was a total douchebag. She was constantly failing at her responsibilities, then blaming the employees when the owner would mention something. I had been working there for about 4 years when one morning I wasn't feeling well. I called around to see if anyone could come in for my shift 4 to 12, but no one was available. I called Wanda to let her know I was sick and unable to come in since part of her job was to cover shifts when others cannot. She told me to be at work and on time, or else I would be fired. So I took my sick butt up to work and within an hour I was throwing up. I even threw up behind the counter when I couldn't make it to the bathroom in time. I called Wanda and told her I had to leave, as I was throwing up constantly. She had an attitude but said she would come in anyway. An hour later, she showed up, complaining that I ruined her day because she and her boyfriend were planning to leave to go on vacation that evening. I started to gather my things and she asked me what I was doing. I said, "I'm sick and throwing up. I'm going home." She replied, "I'm just here to watch the store while you get yourself together. If you leave, don't bother coming back." So I left. Around 8 o'clock Wanda called to ask me where I was. I told her I was at home, in bed, still throwing up. She told me I needed to come back to work so she could leave for her vacation. I reminded her of what she said before she left and said I was more than happy to comply. I hung up the phone and unplugged it. This was when landlines were still popular. I plugged the phone back in at 11:45 and called the store. Wanda answered after a minute of ringing, so the store had to be busy. Usually there's a ton of college kids wanting to get alcohol before the midnight cutoff. I said something like, "Wanda, it's Christine. I just wanted to let you know that I'll be coming by Monday to get my last check, and also, I agreed to work doubles tomorrow and Sunday so employee X could go home for the weekend. Good night," and unplugged the phone again after hanging up. I had a cell phone at this point, but Wanda didn't have the number, so I didn't plug my phone back in until Monday. I went up to the office around 3 to get my last check and Wanda was furious. She had worked an entire extra week's worth of hours in one weekend and she was salaried, so no extra pay. She also got in a lot of trouble when the owner found out what she did and I was rehired immediately. She was fired within a year of that incident. The next one is titled, "There was an attempt to fire me for malicious compliance." So, in 2012, I found myself working as an overnight maintenance laborer for a family-owned collection of properties. 2 shopping complex, a winery, a few warehouses, etc. But most of the time, I was working keeping a grocery store built in the late 60s functioning. Worked my way up to night maintenance manager and loved my job. I was getting the kind of education you can't buy, hands-on electrical one night, plumbing the next, welding after that. All taught to me by 3 men that could build a house, up to code, single-handedly. And we all got along great. It was the first time in my adult life I had real responsibilities and I was respecting myself because I respected the job I was doing. The owners were all people that truly cared about their employees and they proved this when, in 2017, they sold the main grocery store. One of the many things they included in the sale was all current employees had to be offered a new positions at their current pay level. The company that bought us, I won't say their name but think the opposite of dangerous path, does not employ an in-house maintenance team. Something breaks, they outsource the fixing of it. So they really didn't have a ready-made place for me to fit into like the other department managers. The store manager also did not like that I was making $18 an hour, $6 over a new hire rate. Thus began the systematic, what I saw as harassment and what has been later confirmed to me as standard operating procedure for legally getting rid of someone at this company. Some of my faves include, making my 35-year-old butt a bag boy. Joke's on you, I love doing easy work for good money. Writing me up for spending 20 minutes talking to the police about an accident I had seen while returning carts. I thoroughly enjoyed the district manager apologizing to me for that. cutting my hours down from full-time to 24 hours a week, which is completely allowable, but as the second most senior member in the store, everyone below me has to get their hours cut first. No, you can't force me to take a salaried manager's position. Yes, you can make me a cashier, a position you know I do not want, but you have to give me the $3 pay bump and on and on and on, in addition to the many broken verbal promises and out-and-out lies. I became very well versed on the union rules, my specific contract rules, and how to protect myself. 7 union arbitrations in my first 5 months, all ended in my favor. Meanwhile, the assistant managers love me. I can cover any department because I've done most everything and I'm a quick learner for what I don't know. Anything breaks down in the store, it was falling apart before they bought it. If I can't fix it, I can at the very least make a detailed work request so it gets fixed sooner. I become the go-to-cover guy, filling in any position that needs it. Which at long last brings me to my malicious compliance. The store was not doing well, sales-wise. About a year and a half in, they couldn't get a closing butcher. So, the night manager taps me to work in the meat department for 3 hours every night just to close it out and clean it up. In the department there is a bandsaw that's used for cutting meat with bones in it. It's a pain in the ass to clean, so after reading the department manual I realized you were not to use that piece of equipment if you hadn't been trained on it. Now I 100% had been trained on that bone saw. I knew how to take it apart, fix it and put it back together. But that training was with the old company and I had been informed many times that the new company only thought I'd been trained when they had trained me. Perfect. I can close down the bone saw earlier and get it cleaned. If any customer needs me to cut meat with a bone in it, I inform them that I hadn't been trained on that piece of equipment. Shouldn't be an issue, this is late night and the store's not doing that well begin with. I clear all this with the assistant manager. This goes on for months until finally I'm called into the manager's office during the day. Turns out one of the customers I had informed that I could not use the bone saw was a secret shopper. The store manager is writing me up for failure to complete my duties. She's also writing it up as malicious failure. I forget the term they use, it's basically 2 write-ups instead of just 1, and that coupled up with my previous write-up, I was 15 minutes late once, that's on me, gives her the 3 write-ups she needs to fire me. As I have done so many times in the past with this woman, I invoke my right to union representation and decline to talk with her until after I've spoken with them. At this point I'm thinking, they can't bust me, I was following the written directions, but oh no. It got so much sweeter and so much worse. While talking to my union rep it quickly becomes clear that the butchers are a completely different union. The store is in violation of the butchers' union contract by having a non-union employee work that department. So first my union fights the write-up, wins and gets me paid for the 4-5 days I missed of work. They then get me a lawyer who tells me I am not to speak with any store manager in any capacity, due to the butchers' union complaint against the store. 2 weeks off, fully paid, for me, I can't very well work at a store where I cannot speak to my bosses. I then get 2 more days off paid while I speak to the various union reps for my testimony. The store is fined $50,000 is what I was told, for breach of butcher's contract. When I return to work, my store manager does not work there anymore. Her replacement only accepts the job if his bonuses are not tied to the store's overall performance, so he doesn't mind I'm overpaid. As icing on the cake, no one really liked her, so I'm damn near a hero when I get back. The next one is titled, "Want me to take a number?" Here's number 2 everywhere. I'm at Costco trying to order a pair of glasses. If you've never been to Costco, the optical department is usually either next to the entrance or next to the membership desk on the way to the exit. If it's the latter, the entire area is pandemonium from people trying to exit, return things, get memberships, order optical lenses. My local Costco is the latter. I'm standing there with my ticket waiting to be called. My ticket is like 54 and they're on number 48 and there are only 3 guys, so this is taking a while. I notice a woman in the area holds a fussy toddler, I suppose just on the verge of being able to talk, looking for the first available employee. It just so happens that one of the optical guys was done with a customer, so the woman goes up to him and they have an exchange like this. Woman, W, excuse me, optical guy, ma'am, you need to take a ticket and wait. W, but I just, ma'am, take a ticket. There were other people in front of you, W, yeah, but I just wanted to, ma'am, take a ticket. That's the last time I'm going to tell you. You can wait in line like everyone else." At this point, the woman accepts defeat and her toddler is getting fussy. She grabs a ticket and puts her child on the ground. The kid is crying at this point loudly, but I have my headphones in, just trying to wait for my turn. And then it happens. This kid unleashes a torrent of poop that basically explodes his pants and gets all over the AC display poop they try to sell you on the way out. I'm amazed that much poop came out of this little boy. He's crying up a storm and his mum is trying to comfort him, but it just keeps coming and coming. At the same time, he's waddling around and getting it all over the place. The entire area, myself included, jumps back and is giving this lady some space. Finally, after what seems like an eternity, it stops. The kid is crying, his mum holding him, poop running down her arms. There is fecal matter in about a 10-foot radius everywhere. All traffic to the exit has stopped as horrified shoppers looked on. The optical department, including Og, stare at this woman. She marches herself, son in tow, up to the man. I was wondering if you could tell me where the bathroom was. Og sheepishly points to an area behind the registers and W walks away. I decide to come back later when the area didn't smell like a raccoon died, trying to stifle my laughter the whole way through. There is no big sign pointing to the bathrooms visible from the optical department at my Costco. I imagine that will be changing soon. The next one is titled, "Can't Keep Our Trampoline Outside? We'll move it upstairs." The main players are my parents, the landlord, and me, though I'm less in on actual arguing, and more on ideas and executing said ideas, as I am teenager. So we're renting right now and our landlord is interesting. A month ago our landlord said that we can't have the trampoline outside, something about being sued. My parents were upset since there is old plague going on, and our yard is very small, and about the only outside activity we could do was jump on the trampoline. And so, the malicious compliance begins, for, while he said the trampoline can't be outside, he never said anything about inside. And so we began the largest reorganization of the house since we moved in. My parents were already wanting to get rid of our old couch, but didn't really have a way to, but with this situation we started the plan. We moved out the couch from downstairs and moved the couch upstairs down to take its place. The entire family room had to be reorganized, and all in all my dad and I spent about 2 to 3 hours moving heavy furniture, and one tweaked arm on my end. After that my sisters and I spent about 45 minutes setting up the trampoline and we were done. My 2 younger sisters were bummed out about losing the trampoline, which was what led them to think up a solution, and were thrilled when they found out we could keep it. No one has hit their head yet, though I have gotten pretty close. It's not as intense as some of the other stories on here, but my parents and I did get a lot of enjoyment out of following the law to the letter and not at all doing what our landlord wanted us to do. The next one is titled, "Who Owns the Moustache?" My grandfather was a warrant officer in the army. He enjoyed pushing people's buttons and was amazingly good at it. In the 1960s he grew a handlebar moustache. My grandmother hated it and complained about it to him constantly. She demanded he shave it off. So he did, kind of. He shaved half of it off, the left half if I remember correctly. My grandmother blew a gasket. After she calmed down a bit he told her that as her husband she owned half of his moustache, so he shaved off her half. He went to duty the next day, and his men and other officers had a good chuckle about it. Eventually his battalion commander saw him and marched right up. "Warren," the commander said, "why do you only have half a moustache?" My grandfather explained that half belonged to his wife and since she didn't like it, he shaved her half off. The commander said, "Well, the other half of you belongs to the army, so shave off the army's half before you report tomorrow." And so he did, much to the delight of my grandmother. The next one is titled, "Make the Floors Sparkle? I'll Make Them Glitter and Shine." When I was a young ET3 United States Navy electronics technician who was at the end of his training pipeline, stuck in limbo with not much to do because orders were coming in less and less. Generally, the lull period between commands is a period of courtesy calls to the command to verify you haven't partied yourself to death and to verify if you're still in limbo. Except if you have an ET1 jackass who wants to make your life as miserable as they can. Now that I was no longer in training nor a part of his crew, I guess ET1 saw fit to make me his personal janitor. Anyway, after attempting to be clever and having my duty the previous day be to sweep the sunlight off the walkway during the dead of winter in the northeast, meaning I worked like 4 hours and went home, he was furious that his plan had backfired. So his new plan was to make me clean our workshop until it was up to his level of clean. Did the usual dust, sweep, mop, clean windows. I was told, not clean enough. Strip and wax the floor, polish all the metal. I was told, not clean enough. Reorganize all the tool lockers to spec, take apart all the things removing every ghost turd, polish the chairs, fix the squeaky door. I was told, not clean enough. It was at this point, the ET1 said, do you not understand me, petty officer, this room is not clean enough, I want you to make the floor sparkle. Well, it just so happens that the mechanics had this pint of two-tone powder pink and purple paint flake glitter stuff. I did not ask why, only found it and pretended I didn't. So I headed down to their workshop where most of the ones not on watch were hanging around, and I asked them if they'd mind if I took that glitter off their hands. The usual round of, I don't know what you're talking about, but if we did, why, came up, and I simply asked if they'd like to see ET1 lose his mind. He was also infamous for having a short temper. So I obtained the glitter and spent a good 3 hours stripping and re-waxing and buffing the floors, even polished the top of the work table, and go to get ET1 again, after notifying the Navy mechanics to be on standby. Well, ET1 shows up and looks around, not clean enu, what is this, did you just wax glitter into my floor? I respond by inquiring why he was getting so angry, and that I had followed his instructions to the letter. The floor now sparkled. It was in this moment, amongst the growing crowd of onlookers who were chuckling at ET1, that I found out firsthand how a person could get so angry they change colors. Flush, to red, to almost purple with veins bulging in his neck and forehead. I had not seen such a spectacle outside of a Hollywood movie. ET1 proceeded to yell something. It was very incoherent and loud. Storm outside to the smoke pit, scattering everyone who was there as they wanted none of what ET1 was now. Our command master chief even came around the corner to see what the crowd of running non-useful bodies was about, saw ET1, and came to the workshop to see what might have happened. Upon seeing my handiwork, he laughed, and told me to just take it easy until my orders showed up. He didn't need an attempted murder at his command. So I got to spend the next 3 days in relax mode as my paperwork was found, I got new orders, and I was off to the fleet. The next one is titled, Won't Let Me Leave You a Message on a Piece of Paper. Here's 30 post-its. My boss, let's call her Kay, used to duck in and out of the office all day. Part of me wondered why she had a chair at her desk, given she never seemed to stay in the office long enough to sit in it most days. As a result, if I had a message or question, I'd have to leave a note on her desk, for her to find when she next blew in. I used to write them up on A4 pieces of paper because I could put a few things on the one sheet. Apparently this violated office note policy, and I was to only use post-it notes. This was just after I gave a month's notice I was leaving, so I got the feeling she was spiteful and looking to make my last month miserable. Little did she know. Write yoke only post-it notes, it is. Due to their size, I really could only fit one message per piece, so one can only imagine how 30 messages would look, stuck to a computer monitor. Kay told me that I couldn't use so many. I was limited to one post-it note a day. Game on. When I was told only standard size was acceptable, I printed on them in the smallest font I could, size 1, using the smaller font button. So rules updated to only handwritten. I wrote in the smallest handwriting I could and mashed it all together. The handwriting was now required to be at least 1/4 of a cm high and 2 mm space between words. So I went after the notes only in English. Nothing about modern, so Shakespearean it is. They plugged that loophole up, and here the wild ride ends, because that was my last day. The next one is titled, Bratty Kid Says He Can Eat 2 Scoops of Ice Cream. Eat this monstrosity. Last summer I worked as an ice cream vendor on the beach of my hometown. Best job I ever had. People were nice to me, I got to work on my tan, it paid pretty well, but most importantly, we were allowed to eat the delicious ice cream on our breaks. One day, I'm serving a man and his son. The man orders a cone with 2 scoops for him and a cone with 1 scoop for the little one. The kid wasn't happy about that and said to his dad that he also wanted 2 scoops. The dad explains that the scoops are pretty big and that one will suffice for him. I confirm this to help the dad, even offering to make it extra big. Still, the kid doesn't budge, instead, he starts throwing a tantrum, nearly crying how he wanted 2 scoops. The dad, clearly not wanting to ruin his vacation mood, gives up and says to the kid he can have 2 scoops. However, he adds, "If you can't finish your ice cream like I said you wouldn't, no more TV for you, for the rest of the vacation." The kid happily agrees, claiming he could eat a whole tub of ice cream. Big mistake, kid. Me, being the petty person that I am, wanted to teach this brat a lesson. I proceed by scooping one of the most gigantic scoops I've ever scooped in my entire scooping career. I put it on the cone, the kid's eyes widen in shock. My scoop goes back for more, I see the kid tremble in disbelief. I scoop the second most gigantic scoop a scooper could scoop, and graciously add it to the first one. I hand the monstrosity I've created to the kid, who by now realizes he won't watch TV again this summer. The dad seemed pretty cool with it, he even tipped me a little, which was very rare. All in all, a pretty good day. The last one is titled, "Knock My Parenting, and I'll Sit Beside You with My Fussy Twins." I was at the doctor's office today and had to bring my 15-month-old twins with me. These kiddos do not enjoy being cooped up in a stroller, but letting them wander around isn't an option since they will both bolt in opposite directions immediately. They have clean nappies, they've been fed and hydrated, so at this point, any fussing is just stroller-related crankiness. In preparation for having to wait a while and wanting to be considerate of the others who were in waiting room purgatory with me, I packed the diaper bag full of endless snacks and sippy cups. Sure enough, 5 minutes in they lose their mind, so I instantly start giving them snacks and also walking back and forth in the very, very large waiting room. I am at the back area and not even close to being in anyone's way, and as long as I am pacing, the beasties will quietly munch away on their Cheerios. At one point, I stopped pacing to hear the doctor mumble the next patient's name in another barely audible whisper, and this is where a cranky old lady decides to weigh in on my parenting. I hear a huffing noise and look over at her, and the second we make eye contact she says, "Oh my God, you have got to stop walking up and down that back area. You're making me dizzy. Also, you really shouldn't be feeding them that much, just sit down and they will relax too. Watching toddlers really shouldn't be that hard, hun. Thanks." Firstly, while my girls are very healthy, they were preemies born at 3 pounds, 1.5 kilograms and are still very tiny, so I will feed them all the damn Cheerios I want. Secondly, I am doing all this not for myself or the twins but for the benefit of all those around us. Finally, I was waiting to find out if my scans showed cancer or not. Hooray, scans were clean, so I really didn't care. Now for the malicious compliance. I take her advice and sit down. Right next to her. Tons of empty seats everywhere, by the way. Instantly, they start screaming their heads off, and what do? I pull out my book and start reading. Anyone who has ever been seated next to a stranger's baby having a meltdown, close your eyes, imagine that crappy moment, and now double it to account for twins. Within 5 minutes she is looking like she is about to snap and suggests they might want a snack. To which I calmly respond, "Nah, I really shouldn't be feeding them that much," and coolly turn the page of my book. 10 minutes later, my name is finally called and this lady looks like she is ready to give up on life. I, however, have read my first chapter in ages. I guess watching toddlers really isn't that hard after all. Thanks for listening.